Peter Curtin was the king of sexual perverts in Germany during his reign of terror. He was otherwise known as the Vampire of Dusseldorf. His first confirmed victim was a 9-year-old girl who he found sleeping in her bed during a burglary. Peter wanted to terrorize her, so he woke her up. Then he strangled her to death. Afterwards, he slit her throat with a pocket knife to ensure her death and then left her calling card by ejaculating on the dead corpse. Let's find out together why things got progressively worse after this murder. This channel is about lesser known serial killers. If you're interested, I upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. Well, if you're ready, let's get started. (1899) in the country of Germany, a young woman only known as Straub was walking alone on the side of a road. She encountered a man heading in the same direction operating a vehicle. The unidentified man pulled over and introduced himself. Seeing that he was attractive, nicely dressed, and operating a motor vehicle, Straub's eyes widened along with her curiosity. Must be the money. This was during a time when only the wealthy could afford automobiles, so she assumed that this strange man was financially well off. The man, now seeing that she was interested in his swag, offered her a ride home. Somewhere along the route, the man pulled over abruptly to an isolated area. Straub was concerned about his intentions because they just met. Initially, fear came across her eyes, but the man then kissed her, and at some point they began to have sex. During the act of intimacy, the strange man began to put both hands behind her neck. As he squeezed her neck, his erection became harder. So he continued to squeeze tighter until Straub began to fight him for each breath. The man didn't stop squeezing her neck until she appeared dead. He immediately got dressed and dumped the woman's body on the side of the road along with her belongings. Years later, the killer was identified as Peter Curtin. His sick childhood was the catalyst to even more extremely bloody and brutal murders. Peter Curtin was born in 1883 and was the oldest of 13 children. Peter's father would come home drunk regularly and beat him and his mother for the simplest of reasons. Immediately after, his father would assault sexually his wife and force all of his children, including Peter, to watch him during the act. The children were not allowed to even look away. Eventually, Peter's father was sent to prison for 18 months for repeatedly assaulting his 13-year-old biological daughter. As a teenager, Peter found himself to be hypersexual. I wonder why. He began to visit various local farms under the cover of darkness and have sex with all of the sheep, pigs, and goats. But wait, there's more. While he was having intercourse with the farm animals, he would carry along with him a large knife. Instinctively, during the sexual act, he would stab each one of them with the knife at the exact moment of his climax. Peter admitted to having larger orgasms as he sexually penetrated and knifed the animals at the same time. His sexual fantasies became so overwhelming that he could not concentrate on anything other than having more sex, so he dropped out of school and found work. Peter then started to commit petty thefts. One day, Peter stole all the money from his job and ran away. He strangled to death a 17-year-old by the name of Gertrude Franken. He then tasted some of the child's blood, and that's when things got even worse. He ejaculated on the child's face. Savage. Several months later, Peter met a woman who he dated and eventually married. He realized that the only way he was able to have sex with his wife was by thinking about the victims that he had assaulted and killed. So he continued killing and assaulting in order to please his wife sexually. This is crazy, what some people do for love. The next 16 years, he killed 9 people in various ways, but in most cases, he drank their blood. 8 of the victims were women and children, and 1 was a man. Maria Hahn was lured to a cornfield, and she was brutally assaulted and beaten. At the end of the torture, she pled for him to spare her life. Peter looked directly into the woman's eyes as she cried. He then pulled out a pair of scissors and repeatedly stabbed her in the head and body several times, but she wouldn't die. Peter stood there and listened to her labored breathing as she continued begging for her life. After growing tired of stabbing her, Peter chose to intentionally sit on the woman's chest for an hour to rest until she died. Afterwards, he buried her on the spot in a shallow grave. For weeks after the murder, he would visit the burial site and would repeatedly dig her up talk to the corpse, caress her face, and reminisce about the day of her murder. When Peter grew tired of the ritual, he drew a map of the body with a note and anonymously mailed it to the police. Another gruesome killing was the only male victim Peter was responsible for. He was a mechanic by the name of Phlegon Nord. Peter killed him by stabbing him in his eye sockets and torso for his own entertainment. Peter was ultimately turned in by a surviving victim of one of his assaults. She sent a letter to a friend, which was forwarded to the police. That information was able to link Peter Curtin as the person of interest. He was located and brought into the police department for questioning. With ease, he confessed to all the murders that he committed, the drinking of some of the victims' blood, and ejaculating on all the bodies. The media called Peter the vampire of Dusseldorf. Although he confessed to more than 9 murders, the other bodies were not located. He was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to death. If you're interested in more stories, click one of the suggested videos above. God bless and stay safe.